The clock on your nightstand ticks loudly in the otherwise silent room. You've been staring at the ceiling for what feels like hours, but sleep refuses to come. The moonlight, dim and cold, spills through the blinds, casting long, angular shadows across the floor. The house is quiet. Too quiet, save for the occasional creak of the floorboard settling. It's the kind of stillness that makes your skin crawl. You're not the kind of person who believes in ghosts or demons, but there's something about this room. It feels different tonight. The air is thick, almost oppressive, and your skin prickles as if it knows something you don't. It's an unsettling sensation that you can't quite explain, but it's there, gnawing at the edges of your mind. As you shift in bed, trying to get comfortable, you notice something strange. In the corner of the room, just past the foot of your bed, there's a shadow, a dark, featureless mass that seems to stretch unnaturally across the floor. It's strange because the only light in the room should be casting shadows in a completely different direction. The moonlight is coming from the window, but this shadow, it's wrong. You blink, trying to convince yourself it's just the light playing tricks on your eyes. But the more you look, the more it becomes clear. That shadow doesn't belong. It's too tall, too twisted, too human. Your heart skips a beat. You pull the blanket up to your chin, feeling the cold sweat forming on your skin. You turn your gaze away, hoping it'll disappear if you don't look at it. But the feeling of being watched doesn't go away. The hairs on the back of your neck stand on end. Suddenly, the shadow twitches. It moves just a fraction. A slow, deliberate shift. Your stomach drops. It's not your imagination. It's real. Someone is standing in your room just beyond the reach of the light. Panic floods your chest, and a cold rush of fear pulses through your veins. The shadow doesn't make a sound. It doesn't shift or rustle in the way a person would. It just stands there. Your pulse quickens as you dare glance at it again. It hasn't moved, but you're sure it's watching you. Your body freezes. Your mind screaming for you to run, but your limbs refuse to respond. You want to scream, to call out for help, but your voice is trapped in your throat. What do? You could turn on the light, but you're terrified of what might happen if you do. Or worse, what if you don't turn around? What if you ignore it and pretend it's not there? The seconds stretch into an eternity, and you find yourself holding your breath, praying that whatever that shadow is, it doesn't notice you. And then a whisper. It's faint, almost imperceptible, but it comes from a shadow. Don't turn around. The voice lingers in the air, sending chills down your spine. You can't breathe, can't think. Everything in your body tells you to stay still, to not make a sound, but the words, "Don't turn around," ring in your ears like an eerie warning. You feel your body slowly tense, your heart hammering in your chest as every fiber of your being begs you to look. You can't resist the pull. The shadow, its presence, it feels suffocating, like it's waiting for you to make a move. But you can't. You can't turn around. There's something fundamentally wrong with this shadow, something that feels off in a way you can't describe. You tell yourself it's your mind playing tricks, that the stress of the day has caught up with you, but the whispering voice that echoed through the room feels too real to ignore. It knows you're here. It knows you're afraid. In a last-ditch effort to convince yourself you're imagining things, you close your eyes. You pull the covers up over your head, hoping to shield yourself from the terror that's grown in the corners of the room. You squeeze your eyes shut so tightly that your vision flickers with spots of black, hoping that if you ignore it long enough, it will go away. You try to calm your breathing, focusing only on the sound of your own heartbeat, hoping that time will pass and you'll be able to laugh at how ridiculous this all seems. But that voice comes again, this time much closer. A cold breath against your ear. You can't hide from me. You snap your eyes open, heart racing, but the shadow remains still. It's in the same spot, unmoving, yet somehow you're sure it's closer now. The darkness feels like it's closing in on you, suffocating you with its presence. Desperation builds in your chest. You can't stay in the bed forever. Your legs feel weak, your body trembling as the fear begins to overwhelm you. What's worse, looking or staying frozen, pretending nothing's there? With every ounce of courage you have left, you slowly push the covers off and sit up, each movement heavy with dread. Your body trembles as your eyes flicker to the corner of the room, where that shadow lurks. You glance at it for the briefest moment, before quickly looking away. You feel your breath catch in your throat. There's no escape. Your hand shakes as it reaches toward the lamp beside the bed. The small click of the switch is the loudest sound you've ever heard. The harsh, yellow light fills the room, casting sharp, angular shadows on the walls. But the shadow in the corner is still there. It hasn't moved. It hasn't reacted. For a moment, you think you're safe. You've turned on the light, and surely the darkness can't hurt you now. But then, you realize something chilling. It's not the darkness that's terrifying. It's the thing in the corner. As your eyes adjust to the light, you see it clearer now, and your blood runs cold. It's not a shadow in the traditional sense. It's a silhouette, but not of a human form. It's too tall, too distorted, and it seems to stretch unnaturally against the walls, almost as if it's not bound by the laws of reality. And that's when you realize the shadow has no face. It's a black void, an absence of all things, and yet you know without a doubt that it's aware of you, watching you, waiting. You hear the whisper again, this time louder, sharper. I told you not to turn around. Your body freezes. The room feels colder, the shadows stretching long across the walls. The light above flickers, casting brief moments of darkness that make the shadow twitch. You try to scream, but your throat is dry, the sound caught in your chest like a solid lump. You begin to realize what's happening. This isn't just a shadow. It's something far worse. It's an entity, a presence, something that feeds off fear. It has been waiting for you to acknowledge it, to turn around. You want to run, but where would you go? The door? The window? Both feel miles away, as though the room is growing, the walls closing in with every passing second. Your heart pounds in your chest as the room seems to shrink around you. The air is stifling, heavy with the oppressive presence of shadow. The light above flickers again, and for a split second, the room is plunged into darkness. You feel a cold breath on the back of your neck. You know, deep in your bones, that turning around was the wrong choice. The moment you acknowledge the shadow's existence, you unknowingly gave it power. Its form ripples in the dim light, twisting and contorting like smoke. The absence of features where a face should be is haunting, and it seems to move with an almost unnatural fluidity. Your limbs are heavy, as if the very air around you is thick with dread, dragging you down, weighing you. You try to scream, but your voice is strangled in your throat, barely escaping. You try to move, but your legs won't respond. It's as if the presence of the shadow has paralyzed you, your body trapped in a state of immobility. The whispering starts again, only this time. It's louder, sharper, more insistent. You shouldn't have turned around. Now you'll see me. The words seem to vibrate in the air, each syllable crawling under your skin. You force yourself to look back at the shadow, but it's no longer just a shadow. It's moving, stretching toward you like a dark, fluid mass, flowing toward you with purpose. You feel the temperature drop even further, a chill creeping into your bones as its form grows closer. Suddenly, you feel it, a pressure against your chest, like an invisible weight pushing you down. The air becomes thicker, almost suffocating. You gasp for breath, but it's as though the very act of breathing is being denied to you. You try to scream again, but it's muffled, swallowed by the force that surrounds you. The shadow's form grows more solid now, its features becoming more defined, though still utterly formless. You can't make out its eyes, but you feel them on you. Cold, empty, hungry eyes. And then you see it, a flicker of movement, a shape within the shadow. You can't quite comprehend it first, but as your eyes strain against the growing darkness, you realize what it is. A hand, long and skeletal, emerging from the shadow itself. It reaches out toward you, fingers elongated and clawed, as if ready to grip you and drag you into the black void where it came from. The panic that floods your body is unlike anything you've ever felt. You can feel the hand's icy grip on your arm, its cold fingers wrapping around your skin, sending jolts of icy terror through your veins. The shadow's form begins to envelop you, pulling you into its dark embrace. You try to pull away, but its grip tightens, and with it comes an overwhelming feeling of dread, of hopelessness. The shadow isn't just attacking you physically. It's getting inside your mind, filling your thoughts with terror, with whispers of torment, of endless fear. You belong to me now. The voice seems to echo from every corner of the room, reverberating through your skull, drowning you in its darkness. And then, just when you think it's all over, just as you're about to give in to the crushing despair, something inside you snaps. A desperate cry, a flicker of defiance, surges through your chest. With every ounce of strength you have left, you scream, thrashing against the shadow, fighting to break free from its grip. In that moment of desperation, the world seems to pause. Time stretches, distorting, and the air around you vibrates with the energy of the struggle. The shadow's form quivers, its grip loosening for the briefest of seconds. And that's when you make your move. With everything you have left, you wrench yourself free from its grasp, stumbling backward. You don't know how you do it, but somehow you manage to break free. You crash to the floor, gasping for air, your heart racing as you look up to see the shadow recoil. It's not gone. Not yet. But for now, you're free. Part 6. The Haunting Truth. You lie on the floor, panting, your body trembling as you try to process what just happened. The shadow hasn't disappeared. It's still there, lingering at the edge of the room, watching you, waiting. The air is still thick with its presence, and you know, deep down, that it isn't over. The whispering comes again, but this time, it's different. It's not a warning. It's a truth. I've been here all along. I've always been here. The words chill you to the bone. Your mind reels as you try to understand what it means. It sounds impossible, but the more you think about it, the more it makes sense. That feeling you've always had, the way the room seemed different at night, the strange, inexplicable sensations that left you uneasy. You weren't imagining things. It was there all along, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. And now that it has, it won't leave. You stand shakily, feeling the weight of its gaze on you as you move toward the door. Your hands are slick with sweat, your mind racing. You need to escape, but you know that wherever you go, it will follow. There's no escaping it now. You reach for the door handle, your fingers trembling. But before you can open it, a voice stops you. Calm, serene, almost like a lullaby. Don't leave. You're a part of me now. We're together forever. You feel the cold touch on your shoulder once more, and despite everything, a sick part of you understands. It's not over. It will never be over. There's no escaping the shadow, no running from it, no hiding. You know, deep down, that it's always been there, lurking the corners of your room, waiting for the right moment to claim you. But there's one thing you don't understand. Why you? The shadow, the entity, whatever it is, it's connected to you. You can feel its presence, the way it's intertwined with your very existence. The whispers, the shadows, they've been with you for years, and you never notice until tonight. It has been following you, studying you, waiting for the perfect time to reveal itself. And now it's time to decide. Do you give in, surrender to its embrace, and let it claim you as its own? Or do you fight, knowing that the fight will be endless, that the shadow will never truly leave? You close your eyes, and for the first time, you accept the truth. The room isn't just haunted. You are. You always have been. As you stand there, frozen by the shadow's presence, an unsettling thought begins to form in your mind. What if this isn't the first time? The shadow seems to pulsate, almost as if it senses your realization, your growing fear, and it responds by inching closer. It's not just a shadow, it's a part of you, an extension of your very being. It's become you, over time, feeding off your thoughts, your anxieties, your darkest fears. You may not have noticed it at first, but it's been following you all your life. The more you think about it, the more pieces fall into place. Every corner you've walked past, every room you've been in, every dark alley you've entered, it's always been there. That chill you felt when you were alone in the house. The strange sensations, the whispers in the dark. It wasn't just paranoia or a trick of the mind. It was a shadow waiting, biding its time. You take a shaky step backward, your gaze never leaving the corner of the room. There's no denying it now. It's real. It's more than just a figment of your imagination. And now you're bound to it. This is your reality now. The air grows colder, thick with the weight of your thoughts. The whispers grow louder, like 1,000 voices speaking all at once, each word sharper than the last. I'm here, always, forever. The voice is clearer now, and with it comes an overwhelming sensation of despair. You clutch your head, as though trying to block out the words, the sound that now fills your mind. Suddenly, the shadow's form becomes more defined. It isn't just a silhouette anymore. It's solid, moving in a deliberate, unnatural way. It stretches across the floor, winding and twisting like a serpent, slithering toward you. Each movement is slow, purposeful. The temperature drops even further, and you feel as though you're standing in the heart of an ice storm. Your breath comes in shallow gasps, the cold creeping through your skin and into your bones. You can't take it anymore. You need to escape. Without thinking, you rush toward the door. The closer you get to it, the harder it becomes to move. It's as though the shadow is reaching out, trying to hold you in place. Your legs feel like they're wading through thick, heavy tar. You claw at the doorknob, but it's like your hands don't belong to you. They're shaking uncontrollably, your fingers slick with sweat. You pull again, harder this time, and the door creaks open just enough for you to slip through. You're free. For a moment, you think you've won. You stagger into the hallway, gasping for air, the light from the hallway sconces offering some comfort. The house is quiet now, eerily quiet, but you can still hear the faint whispering echoing through the walls. But as you move further into the hall, you realize something far worse than the shadow following you. There's no escape. The house, once familiar, now feels alien, wrong. The walls seem to stretch, elongating as you walk. The hallways twist in ways they shouldn't, leading you deeper into the house. You turn corners and pass doors you don't recognize. You've lived here for years, but this house is unfamiliar, foreign to you now. The shadow follows. It's there, just behind you, moving in the corners of your vision. You turn quickly, but it's always just out of reach. It taunts you, like a predator playing with its prey, testing your limits, seeing how far you can go before breaking. And then you hear it again. You can't escape. You turn to see the shadow growing larger, closer, filling the hallway. It's not just in the corner now. It's surrounding you. It consumes everything in its path. The walls, the floors, the ceilings, all are consumed by the black, swirling mass of darkness. You try to run, but your legs betray you, collapsing under you as the shadow wraps around your ankles. You struggle, kicking, trying to free yourself, but it tightens its grip, pulling you down toward the floor into the inky abyss that has become your world. You scream, but the sound is swallowed by the darkness. It's as though the very air is alive with the sound of your terror, but it's muted, drowned in the overwhelming presence of the shadow. The whispers are now deafening, a cacophony of voices, all speaking at once. You're mine. The pull of the shadow is inescapable now. It drags you, inch by inch, deeper into the darkness. The world around you seems to fracture, as though the very fabric of reality is tearing apart, pulling you into a place you can't understand. Your thoughts are a jumble of fear and confusion. The shadow, it's not just a thing. It's something ancient, something powerful, and you fed it with your fear, your dread. You've kept it alive all this time, unknowingly giving it strength. You wonder if this is what it has been waiting for all along. The moment when you would finally break, when you would realize the truth of your situation, and when you would surrender to it. As the darkness presses in, you feel yourself slipping, your vision fading, your body growing numb. But there's a flicker, a moment of clarity. The shadow might have you physically, but it doesn't have to have you mentally. You force yourself to focus, to block out the endless whispers, the suffocating cold. There's still a part of you that can fight, that can resist. You dig deep into your mind, trying to find that tiny spark of defiance, that last shred of willpower. And then you make the decision. You choose not to turn around again. You refuse to let the shadow consume your thoughts. You refuse to give in to the fear that has haunted you for so long. The battle isn't over, but you can still fight. The shadow may have control over your body, but it doesn't have your soul. As the shadow grows, pulling you into its embrace, you close your eyes and refuse to look back. You don't turn around. And in that final moment, the darkness recedes. You wake up at the start, your breath ragged, sweat slicking your skin as if you just run a marathon. The room is silent, still, yet there's a presence in the air, something that wasn't there before, something you can't quite name. You blink rapidly, trying to shake off the remnants of the dream. Or was it more than a dream? You glance around the room, half expecting the shadow to be waiting in the corner, lingering like a patient predator. But the room is empty. The familiar objects of your space sit quietly as if untouched by the nightmare that still echoes in your mind. A sense of unease settles over you. The stillness of the room seems to amplify the dread you feel. You try to reason with yourself. It was just a dream, right? The shadow, the whispers, just a product of an overactive imagination. But deep down, you know it wasn't just a dream. The air feels heavier than usual, like it's suffused with something wrong. You shake your head, trying to clear the fog from your mind. Your fingers tremble as you reach for your phone on the nightstand, desperate to focus on something mundane. The glow of the screen brightens the dark room, and for a moment, you think you've found something to anchor yourself. A notification catches your eye. It's an alert from an app you don't remember downloading. A black icon with strange symbols that you've never seen before. The notification simply reads, "The shadow is waiting. You were warned." A chill runs through your spine, cold enough to freeze the blood in your veins. Your breath catches in your throat as your mind races. It wasn't a dream. The shadow is real. It's waiting for you, and it knows you're awake. You check the app, but there's no other information, no instructions, no way to respond, just that message. The app vanishes as quickly as it appeared, leaving you with a strange sense of dread, like you've unlocked something you can't undo. You try to shake it off, dismissing it as a strange glitch. Maybe it was spam. But even as you try to convince yourself, you can't ignore the nagging feeling that something is terribly wrong. The hours pass slowly. You can't sleep again. The shadow from your dream lingers like a dark cloud hovering just beyond your mind's eye. It's as if it's waiting for you to let your guard down, to close your eyes long enough for it to strike. You can't escape the feeling that you're being watched. At first, you think it's just paranoia. But as the day drags on, the sense of presence becomes impossible to ignore. Every creak of the house, every rustle of the wind outside, makes your heart skip a beat. At night, you don't dare sleep with the lights off. You tell yourself it's just a lingering aftereffect of the nightmare, but the growing unease in your stomach tells you otherwise. That night, you hear it again, the whispers. Soft at first, like a breeze skimming across the floor. But then they grow louder, more distinct, until they're all around you, filling your ears. It's the same voice, the same chilling words. You can't escape. You're mine now. You clench your fists, fighting back the rising tide of fear. It's just your mind playing tricks on you, right? Or is it? You think of the app, the message, the dark presence that seems to be seeping into every corner of your life. It's as though it has somehow transcended the boundaries of the dream world and is now walking in the waking world with you. You can feel the weight of it pressing in, getting closer with every passing minute. The next day, you find yourself in an uncontrollable spiral. You can't shake the feeling of being followed, like the shadow is always lurking behind you, waiting for the right moment to strike. It's no longer confined to your dreams. It's with you everywhere. It's even in the mundane moments of your day. While walking down the street, you feel it like a whisper against your skin. When you glance over your shoulder, no one is there. But the shadow is lurking just beyond your peripheral vision, stretching toward you like it's alive, crawling over the world like an unseen plague. It taunts you, daring you to look. But you know better now. You're terrified to turn around. You visit friends and family. Try and forget for a while, but the unease follows you. The familiar faces don't offer comfort. They only remind you of what's lurking in the darkness. That night, you're unable to sleep again. You stare at the ceiling, heart racing. The whispers begin again, louder this time. They're everywhere, echoing in your ears, in your mind, as if the shadows themselves are speaking. You squeeze your eyes shut, pressing your palms against your ears, hoping to block them out. But it doesn't help. The whispers get louder, clearer, as if they're in you now. You can never escape. You'll see the truth soon. The words are so clear, so chilling that you can't help but wonder, what truth? Suddenly, the room grows colder. Your breath comes in visible puffs as the temperature drops, and you can feel the weight of something pressing against your chest, like a hand pushing down on your very soul. You sit up, gasping, and that's when you see it. A shadow, darker than the rest of the darkness. It's at the foot of your bed. For the first time, you see it in full. Its form isn't just a vague mass. It's a shape, a human shape, but its face is featureless, hollow, empty. It's a twisted reflection of you. The shadow stretches its arms out toward you, as if inviting you to embrace it. You know now, it's not just following you anymore. It's calling to you. You freeze. The dread and terror are paralyzing, but at the same time, a horrible realization settles within you. This is what it's been waiting for. This is the moment it claims you completely. The shadow's presence envelopes the room, filling the space until there's nothing but darkness. Your body trembles, caught in paralysis of fear, but the voice continues, echoing in your mind. Look, you can't hide anymore. You never could. You belong to me now. Turn around. You're torn between the overwhelming urge to turn around and the voice that warns you against it. The fear that something far worse in the shadow awaits you on the other side of the darkness. Then, a sudden surge of defiance washes over you. You remember the choice you made before. You didn't turn around. And you won't this time. No matter what happens, no matter how strong the urge is to obey, you refuse. You won't turn around. Not for the shadow. Not for whatever waits in the void behind you. You close your eyes. You focus. You focus on your breathing, your heartbeat. The room is still cold, but you begin to feel warmth radiate through your body as you reject the darkness. You stand tall, face forward, and refuse to turn around. For a long time, there's only silence. The shadow is still there, pressing against you, but you stand firm. You realize then that you've made your choice. The shadow may always linger at the edges of your perception, but you reclaimed your mind. You faced the terror and denied it. It can't have you. The days following the confrontation with the shadow feel like an eternity. Each morning you wake, your heart still racing, as if the events of the night before were merely a distant memory or a haunting reminder. But the strange thing is the shadow, it never truly left. You can feel it lurking, waiting. A sense of dread always hangs in the air. The house that once felt like your sanctuary now feels more like a prison. Every room seems colder, darker. Even the smallest corner of your home feels like it's been taken over by something unnatural. No matter where you go, the feeling of being watched never leaves. It doesn't matter if you're at work, out with friends, or in your own bed. The shadow follows you. You no longer sleep well, waking up constantly with the feeling that it's right there, just beyond your line of sight, waiting for you to falter. You try to ignore it, telling yourself that it's just your mind playing tricks. You didn't turn around. You stood your ground. That should have been enough. But no matter how hard you try to convince yourself, it's impossible to escape the growing sensation that something is wrong. Something deep within the house feels alive, as though it's waiting for the right moment to pounce. One night, while pacing through the house, you find something that shouldn't be there. It's a journal, old, leather-bound, and thick with age. You can't remember ever seeing it before, but something about it feels familiar, almost like it belongs to you. It's sitting on the coffee table in the living room, as if it's been waiting for you to find it. You open it, flipping to the pages, and discover notes written in the same hand you've used countless times. Your handwriting. But these entries aren't from your present. They are from years ago. You freeze, reading the first few words. I feel it watching me, waiting. The shadow is getting closer. I don't know how much longer I can keep it away. I made a deal with it when I was younger. Now it wants more. Your heart skips a beat. The words are unsettling, like a glimpse into a past you've long forgotten, or perhaps buried. It seems like you've been here before, but you have no recollection of making any deal. You continue reading, each page more disturbing than the last. I didn't turn around. I didn't think I needed to, but now it's here, and it's not leaving. The shadow will never go away. Once you let it in, it takes everything. It becomes you. The words are written in a fevered scrawl, and by the time you get to the final page, you realize a horrifying truth. The journal isn't just a forgotten memory. It's a warning, a message from your past self. Someone who faced a shadow before, and someone who knew that the consequences of defying it were far worse than you had ever imagined. You slam the journal shut, your heart pounding. There's no mistaking it now. This thing has been with you for far longer than you ever realized. It wasn't just the first time you saw it in your room. No, the shadow has been with you since your childhood, a constant presence, an unwelcome companion. You've been living with it all this time, but it's grown stronger, and it wants something from you. The more you read, the more your memories start to unravel, like pieces of a puzzle falling into place. Little moments from your childhood begin to surface, moments you had long since forgotten, buried in the recesses of your mind. And with each memory, the shadow grows clearer in your mind's eye. You remember being a child, playing in your room, when you first felt it, the presence. It wasn't just a figment of your imagination. It was there, standing in the doorway, watching you. But you didn't think much of it then. Children often imagine things that aren't real, right? But it was real. The shadow had been there, hiding in the corners of your world, waiting. And now it had come to claim what it was owed. You try to reach your phone to call someone, anyone. But as you do, the room grows darker, colder. The whispers return, louder than before, their voices now insistent, almost mocking. The walls seem to close in around you as the shadow's form takes shape once again. It stands at the edge of your vision, but this time, it isn't the featureless form you once saw. It is more defined, more solid. Its face, if you can call it that, now holds a dark, twisted reflection of your own. You see it clearly now. It is you, but not the you've known. It is the version of you that's been consumed by fear, by darkness, by the thing you try to run from all these years. It speaks your name, its voice chilling and hollow, resonating in your very bones. You cannot escape yourself. You have already made your choice. You turned away once, but now you must turn around. The price for defiance is steep. The room seems to tilt, the walls shifting like they're breathing. Your breath catches in your throat. This is it. This is the moment. You've pushed it away for so long, but now there's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. The shadow advances toward you, its form becoming more solid, more real with every step. You stand paralyzed, caught between the overwhelming urge to run and the undeniable truth that there's no place left to go. You've spent your whole life running from it, trying to deny its existence, but now you realize that the shadow is not just a force outside of you, it's a part of you. It's your darkness, your fears, your regrets, manifesting into something tangible. You've been feeding it all these years, with every moment of doubt, every shred of fear, every weakness. This is the moment of reckoning. The shadow stretches out its hand, and you know, deep down, that if you reach out and take it, everything will change. The consequences are unknown, but the promise is clear. You will be consumed just as you've always feared. You stand frozen, staring at the shadow, seeing yourself in its twisted form. You can't tell if it's you looking back at yourself or something else entirely. You take a deep breath, feeling the weight of everything you've experienced. The nightmares, the whispers, the constant presence. You've spent so long wondering if you could escape it. But maybe that was never the point. Maybe the only way to truly escape is to face it. With trembling hands, you step forward, facing the shadow head-on. And in that moment, everything goes dark. You awaken, disoriented, lying on the floor of your room. The house is silent again. The whispers have stopped. The air feels lighter, almost peaceful, in a way you haven't felt in ages. The shadow, it's gone. For the first time in what feels like forever, you feel free. As if a weight has been lifted from your soul. You sit up, blinking in the dim light, unsure what just happened. Was it real? Was the shadow ever really there at all? You stand, looking around the room, and for a moment, everything feels normal again. But then you catch a glimpse of something in the corner. A shadow darker than the rest. It's watching you. And this time, it doesn't have to say a word. You can never escape. And you know, deep down, that it's not the shadow you have to worry about. It's the part of you that refuses to face it. The last shadow is you. The house feels like it's holding its breath as you stare at the shadow in the corner. It's not large, not as imposing as it once was. But it's there. Its form, distinct yet formless, seems to stretch into the corner of the room where the light barely reaches. For a brief moment, you think it might dissipate as quickly as it appeared. But then it moves. It shifts, sliding across the wall like ink poured into water. It's alive, a part of the world, a part of you. You back away, the old fear surging through your veins, but something new rises with it, a strange sense of calm. You've seen this shadow before. You felt its presence in your very bones. But now, you know that it isn't something that can be defeated by flight. It's a part of you, a reflection of everything you have tried to hide, a mirror of your darkest corners. You remember the journal, the words that your past self had written. Once you let it in, it takes everything. It becomes you. For so long, you believed you could outrun it, but now it seems you stopped running. The shadow moves toward you, slow and deliberate. It doesn't speak this time, but you feel its presence grows stronger, pushing against you like a weight you can no longer ignore. It doesn't take much longer before it's standing right in front of you, its faceless form towering over you. And then you hear it, a whisper, so faint, so quiet, that it could almost be mistaken for a breath of wind. But it's not. You've always known. You've always known the truth. Your chest tightens. The words rattle inside your head like a bell tolling in the distance, reverberating through your skull. You want to scream. You want to deny it. But the truth sits there undeniable. The shadow is you. It's every mistake you've ever made, every dark thought, every fear you've buried deep within. It's the part of you that you've tried to hide from the world, and from yourself, the part you've ignored, hoping it would disappear if you pretended it didn't exist. You stumble back, your knees shaking. How could you have been so blind? How could you have not seen it all along? The shadow shifts, swirling around you like a vortex, closing in tighter. It's as if it knows you've realized the truth. It wants you to accept it, to embrace it. But can you? Your mind spins. You remember the warning from the journal, the promise that the shadow would become you. But what does that mean? If it's a part of you, can it ever truly be separated? Will you forever live in the shadow of your own fears and regrets? You look into the corner of the room and see something glinting faintly in the dark. Your reflection, but not in the mirror. No, it's you, standing in the shadow, your own eyes glowing faintly in the dark. It's a grotesque version of yourself, pale, distorted, eyes sunken in, as though the shadow is feeding on your very essence. And somehow, you know that this is what's waiting for you if you give in. But even so, you feel an urge to reach out. A strange pull, like the shadow is offering you something comforting, something familiar. It promises you peace, the end of the constant fear, the torment. You feel the warmth of its presence creeping into you. The hunger that the shadow embodies is yours too. You know that you could give in. You could turn around, accept it, let it consume you, and maybe, just maybe, it would stop. Maybe you could be free of it forever. Maybe the pain would end. But there's something else. A small, quiet voice inside you that refuses to be swallowed by the darkness. You can fight it. The voice whispers. You don't have to become this. You don't have to be the monster you fear. Face it. Own it. Walk through it. You can beat it. For the first time in what feels like forever, you understand. The shadow isn't just a physical force. It's a reflection of everything you've hidden from. It's the things you've tried to outrun, the emotions you buried deep within you, shame, guilt, fear. And the only way to survive it is not by running, not by giving in. You must face it. You take a deep breath. It feels almost impossible, but you step forward, moving toward the dark floor before you. The air grows colder, the darkness thickening around you. The shadow reaches out, its long tendrils stretching toward you. But this time you don't recoil. You let it touch you, You let it wrap around your body, around your heart, around your mind. You feel its icy fingers grip you, feel the old, familiar terror crawl up your spine. But this time, you don't fight. You don't run. Instead, you embrace it. You let the shadow inside, allowing to become a part of you, not as a conqueror, but as an equal. You stand tall, breathing through the fear, through the suffocating darkness. You feel it, the weight of your own emotions, your regrets, your anger, your sorrow, all swirling within you. But rather than succumb to them, you stand in the face of them. The shadow starts to dissipate, thinning, growing weaker as you accept it. The darkness no longer overwhelms you. Instead, it becomes a part of you, something you can control, something you can acknowledge, but not something that controls you. It no longer wants to swallow you whole. It wants you to acknowledge it, to accept it, and to become whole. The room is silent now. The air is lightened, and though the shadow is gone, you can still feel its presence, lingering in the back of your mind. But it doesn't feel like a threat anymore. The world outside is slowly coming into focus as morning breaks. The first light of dawn filters through the curtains, bathing the room in a soft, golden glow. You breathe deeply, feeling a weight lift from your chest. The burden you've carried for so long, the constant fear, the unrelenting dread, it's over. At least for now. But you know one thing for sure, this battle isn't won. The shadow may have receded, but it will always be a part of you, lurking just beyond the surface. It will always be there, a reminder of everything you faced, everything you've endured. But for now, you stand tall. You've learned that the shadows don't define you. They can't consume you. Not anymore. You've won. For now. Days pass, and the oppressive weight of the shadow seems to have lifted. You begin to find solace in the familiar rhythms of life. You go to work, interact with friends, sleep without the nightmares. For the first time in a long time, you feel normal, at peace. It feels almost too quiet, too simple. But something inside you still stirs. A small nagging thought, a suspicion that perhaps the shadow hasn't truly been vanquished. It's easy to ignore, to dismiss, as the days turn into weeks. After all, you confronted it. You faced it, accepted it. It's a part of you now, and it no longer holds the power it once did. Or does it? It starts with little things. Flickers in the corner of your eye. A shadow moving where there should be none. You wake up in the middle of the night, feeling the cold air of the room shift. But when you look around, there's nothing there. Nothing but the stillness of the dark. You tell yourself it's nothing. Your mind playing tricks on you. After all, you've conquered the shadow, haven't you? But it's different now. One evening, while you're in the kitchen, preparing dinner, you catch a glimpse of something in the hallway. A fleeting silhouette just out of the corner of your eye. This time it doesn't retreat. It lingers. You freeze, your heart pounding in your chest. The shadow, it's back. But this time, it's not just in the corner of the room. It's creeping closer, moving, as if it's learning, adapting. It knows you, it understands you, and it knows exactly what to do to make you tremble again. Your breath catches in your throat. You try to move, but your limbs feel heavy, frozen. It's as if the shadow has gained a new power, a new strength, stronger than before, stronger than you could have imagined. The shadow's presence grows more tangible with each passing day. It no longer hides in the corners of your vision. It's everywhere. The walls feel closer. The air feels heavier. You can't escape the feeling that it's always there, watching, waiting. It seems to be waiting for you to slip up, for you to show weakness. You begin to hear things again, the whispers. They start as soft murmurs, like distant voices calling your name, but soon they grow louder, more insistent. You can't escape them. They curl into your mind, a constant barrage of half-formed thoughts and words. The lines between your reality and the shadow's world blur. You catch glimpses of yourself in mirrors, but not your reflection. No, it's a twisted version of you, a version with hollow eyes, a gaping mouth, and a twisted grin stretching impossibly wide. You recoil in terror each time, but the reflection doesn't go away. It lingers. It's as if the shadow is not just a dark entity. It's a manifestation of your psyche, of the fractured parts of your soul. It's manipulating you, pushing you to confront your darkest thoughts. It wants you to lose yourself in it, to break, to surrender. One night, after another sleepless evening plagued by the relentless whispers, you decide you can't take it anymore. You must do something. You must end it. But how? What can you do when it's not just something external? When it's you, your own mind, your own fears, twisting and consuming everything you thought you understood. You remember the journal, the final entry that had warned you. Once it has you, it will never truly let you go. The words echo in your mind like a prophecy, like a curse. You need answers. You search through old boxes, rifling through papers, books, anything that might give you a clue. And then, buried deep in a forgotten drawer, you find it, the journal, the one from your past self. But this time, as you read, something feels off. The pages are different. The ink is fresh. New entries have appeared, written in your own handwriting, as if you wrote them just last night. The latest entry reads, "The shadow is not just a part of me. It's a part of everything. It wants more than my soul. It wants the world. And it will stop at nothing until it has it. The darkness has no boundaries, no limits. And now, it has learned to feed on more than just me." Your heart drops. The shadow is no longer just in your room. It's growing, spreading, creeping to the fabric of your reality. It's not just a personal torment anymore. It's taking over, changing the world around you. There is no longer any choice. You know what must be done. You've been avoiding it, running from it. But the shadow has already consumed too much. Now it wants everything. You gather what little courage you have left. It's time to face it again. This time, not as an individual, but as a final stand for everything you hold dear. You must not only confront the shadow within you, but the very forces it has begun to summon. You feel it now, pulling at the edges of your world, tearing at the seams of your reality. You enter the living room, where the shadow seems to have manifested the strongest. It stands before you, once again taking on the form of your darkest reflection, your every fear personified. "You cannot fight me anymore," it whispers, its voice like a rasping breath. "You belong to me. You always have. You always will." This time, you don't back away. You step forward, and as you do, you feel the room darken. The air thickens. The shadow spreads further, like ink spilling across a page, engulfing the walls, the floor, the ceiling. It's everywhere now, a suffocating void. But there's one thing the shadow didn't count on. You don't fight it with fear anymore. You don't struggle against it. You don't try to outrun it. You face it. And as you do, something within you shifts. The shadow wavers, faltering for the first time. The room grows colder. The shadows shift and warble like liquid, rippling around you. The ground trembles as if the very house is being torn apart. The whispers grow louder, louder still, until they are deafening. But you stand unmoving. Then something changes. A flash of light, a crack like thunder, splits the air. You're no longer in your home. You're somewhere else, somewhere darker, somewhere deeper. The shadow, the darkness itself, surrounds you, pressing in from all sides. But you're not afraid. For the first time in your life, you understand the truth. The shadow isn't your enemy. It never was. It's a part of you, a force of nature that has been twisted by fear and guilt. It's your own reflection, your own mind's darkest corners brought to life. And now, finally, you know what must be done. You close your eyes, breathe in, and finally, let it go. And as you release the shadow, it begins to unravel, fading into nothingness, leaving only the silence behind. For the first time in years, you feel free. Weeks have passed since you faced the darkness. You've returned to a semblance of normalcy, living in the quiet, with the knowledge that the shadow no longer holds you in its grip. The world feels brighter, the air lighter. Your nights are undisturbed. Your days, though still tinged with unease, feel like a step forward. But you can't shake the nagging sensation, the one that whispers in the back of your mind, telling you it isn't truly gone. Every time you walk through the house, you catch yourself glancing into the corners, checking reflections in mirrors, searching for any sign of its return. It's subtle at first, an odd flicker of movement in the corner of your eye, the way the shadows seem to stretch just a little too far, the way the air feels colder when you're alone in a room. For now, it's nothing, but something tells you it's coming back. You try to push it down. You've faced it before. You'll face it again. But deep down, a part of you knows that this isn't over. It never was. It begins with a sound of knocking. Soft at first, barely audible, like the wind gently tapping against a window. But you hear it again, louder this time. It's coming from the front door. You freeze, your heart racing. No one should be at your door at this hour. You haven't had visitors in weeks. You cautiously move toward the door, peeking through the peephole, but there's no one there. Panic rises in your chest. The knocking continues. You pull away from the door, thinking maybe you imagined it, or maybe it's just the wind. But it doesn't stop. It becomes more insistent, more urgent. There's something off about it. Something familiar. Then you hear a voice. Low, almost a whisper, but you know it's directed at you. Let me in. You stumble back, your breath hitching in your throat. The voice is unmistakable. It's the same whisper you heard in the dark all those nights ago, the one that called you, the one that had haunted you. I'm still here, waiting. Your pulse quickens. Your thoughts are a mess. It can't be. You faced it. You defeated it. It's not real. Yet the knocking continues, and with it, the chilling voice growing louder, more frantic. Open the door. Let me in. And then, just as suddenly as it began, the knocking stops. Complete silence fills the house. The kind of silence that screams at you, suffocating the air, crushing your lungs. You stand frozen, unsure what to do, unsure what's real anymore. The terror, the dread, it's back. That night, you lie in bed, wide awake, listening to the sound of the house settling. The silence is overwhelming. But just when you begin to think that maybe it was all a figment of your imagination, you feel it, a shift in the air. The temperature drops, the shadows lengthen, and then, from the corner of the room, you see it, the faintest silhouette creeping from the darkness. The shadow is back, but this time it doesn't move like it did before. It doesn't grow or expand. It hovers, almost waiting for you to react. For a long moment, you simply stare at it. The creature that had once dominated your mind, that twisted your every thought, now stands before you again. Its form is more defined now. Its edges sharper, as if it's been refined, honed with time. It doesn't speak this time. It doesn't need to. Instead, it shifts, slowly, deliberately, like a predator sizing up its prey. It moves toward you, but not with force, not with speed. It's as if it knows it doesn't need to rush. It knows you're already broken. But something inside you has changed. You can feel it. The strength that had been slowly growing, a resilience you didn't realize you had. You know that you can't let it win again. Not like before. You stand tall, facing head on. You won't run. You won't cower. The shadow pauses, almost as if surprised. For a moment, you feel a flicker of doubt coming from it, an uncertainty. You think you can defeat me? The shadow finally speaks, its voice thick and suffocating. You think you can ever be free of me? You don't answer. You don't need to, because this time you understand. This time, you're not just fighting a dark force. You're fighting yourself. The parts of you that were always waiting to take control. The fears, the weaknesses, the regrets. You've learned to confront them, accept them, and in doing so, you've learned the secret. You don't need to defeat the shadow. You need to live with it. You close your eyes, taking a deep breath. The shadows don't make you weak anymore. They make you stronger. You're a part of me. You whisper into the darkness. But you're not in control. I am. The room falls quiet, and for a brief, fleeting moment, everything goes still. The shadow recoils, as if stunned by your words. It trembles for just an instant, its form flickering like a faulty light bulb. Then, the voice returns, this time softer, as if unsure of itself. You can't escape me. I don't need to escape you. You reply, your voice steady, stronger than before. I've already won. You'll always be there, lurking in the corners. But I am no longer afraid. I control you. You don't control me. And with that, the shadow begins to fade, its form disintegrating into the air, melting away like smoke. It's not gone entirely, but its presence is no longer suffocating, no longer all-consuming. The room grows warm again. The air lightens. You take a deep, steadying breath, and for the first time in what feels like forever, you feel at peace. The days pass slowly, but something within you has shifted. The fear is gone, replaced with something far more powerful. Understanding. The shadow still lingers in the edges of your mind, but it no longer has the power to haunt you. You wake up each morning with a sense of clarity you haven't felt in years. You no longer feel burdened by the darkness, and while it still whispers, still scratches at the edges of your thoughts, you've learned to live alongside it. You know it's there, but now, it's nothing more than a reminder of what you survived. And as the years go by, the shadow remains. But it no longer dominates your life. The darkness is a part of you. And for once, you're okay with that. You've learned that you don't have to fight it to be free. You only need to live with it. For now, the shadow remains, quietly waiting in the corner of your room. But you're no longer afraid. Years have passed since the shadow first began to haunt you. Life has taken on a different rhythm, one of understanding, acceptance, and a quiet kind of peace. You've settled into a routine. You've made a life for yourself, and though the shadow still lingers, it's no longer a constant presence. It doesn't rule you anymore. You've learned to coexist with it, like a distant memory that never truly fades, yet no longer holds power over you. There are moments, however, when it still manages to slip into corners of your mind, reminding you that it's never completely gone. It's the small things now, the flickers in the mirror, the whispers at the edge of your hearing, little things that you've come to accept as part of the world you live in. But then one day, something shifts. You're sitting at your desk, working quietly, when you notice something on the edge of your vision, an unfamiliar shadow, longer than the rest, stretching across the room. You dismiss it at first, but then you see it again. This time, the shadow isn't just in the corner of the room. It's creeping closer, inch by inch. Your heart races. This doesn't feel the same. This doesn't feel like the shadow you've lived with for years. No, this is different. It's colder, darker, and it feels wrong. You stand up, backing away from it, but the shadow moves with you. It doesn't follow, it pursues. It seems to understand you now, in a way it never did before. And this time, there's something more, something new. A voice, harsh and deep, echoes in your mind. You thought you could escape me. You thought I was nothing more than a memory. But I've been waiting for you to forget. You know what this is. This isn't the shadow you've learned to live with. This is something darker, more dangerous, something angrier. The shadow has evolved, taken on a new form. It's no longer just a part of you. It's something else entirely. A cold sweat forms on the back of your neck as you realize what it means. The darkness in the room grows, and the temperature drops. You can feel it wrapping around you, squeezing the very air from your lungs. Your body feels heavy, as though the shadow is trying to drag you into it, to consume you entirely. The whispers grow louder, more frantic, but you can't understand them. They're foreign, disjointed, as if 100 voices are speaking at once. And then you hear the one voice that stands out from the rest, the one that terrifies you to your core. You're mine now. There's no escape. I've been waiting for this moment, waiting for you to let your guard down. The room seems to close in around you. The walls stretch, the ceiling lowers, and the floor beneath your feet buckles. It feels like the world itself is twisting, warping into something unrecognizable. The air is thick like fog, and you can't breathe. You stumble, your vision blurring, try to move, but the shadow is everywhere, wrapping around your legs, pulling you toward it. And then, in the distance, you see it, the reflection of yourself, twisted and distorted, standing in the doorway. It's no longer just a shadow of fear or regret. It's something else, something darker. The reflection speaks, its voice a hollow echo of your own. You've always known that I would return. You've always known this day would come. You try to move, but it's as if the very room is fighting against you, holding you in place. The darkness presses against your skin, making it impossible to breathe. The shadow is everywhere, consuming everything. Your thoughts, your memories, your will to resist. The reflection in the doorway steps forward, growing larger, more distorted with every step. It's you, but not you. A darker version. One that feeds off the parts of you try to hide. The regret, the anger, the fear. All of it is magnified in this twisted, mocking version of yourself. Do you think you can stop me now? The reflection asks, its voice a cruel mockery. Do you think you've won? You feel it again, the pull. The shadow is trying to take over, trying to swallow you whole. But there's something in you that refuses to give in. You've faced it before. You've lived with it. And you know that the only way to stop it is to confront it head on. You can't let it consume you. You close your eyes, gathering every ounce of strength you have left. The darkness claws at your mind, but you push back against it, forcing yourself to stand tall. I am not you, you whisper through gritted teeth, though the words feel small against the overwhelming presence of the shadow. I will never be you. You can't control me. For a moment, the shadow falters. The room freezes and the distorted reflection falters, its form rippling like water, but it doesn't disappear. It looms larger, more powerful than before. We'll see how long you can resist. We'll see how long you can keep the darkness at bay. The shadow closes in, suffocating, its tendrils creeping up your body. You can feel it pulling at your very soul, try to drag you into its endless depths. But you don't give in. You don't back down. Your mind races, searching for a way to break free. And then you remember something, a thought that had been buried deep within your consciousness, one that had slipped away after all these years. The shadow can't exist without you. It's a reflection of your fears, your darkness, but it isn't you. It can only live if you feed it. And you're done feeding it. You force your mind to clear, to focus on one single thought. I am not afraid. With that, you push forward, your will stronger than the pull of the shadow. You take one final, desperate step toward the reflection, toward the dark entity that has tormented you for so long. I'm not yours, you say, voice steady but fierce. I am me. And with that, the room begins to shift again. The darkness retreats. The shadow flickers and twists, shrinking back as if it's been cut off from its source. The reflection fades into the air, its cruel grin dissolving into nothingness. Beyond the shadow, the room returns to its normal state. The air is warm once more. The oppressive weight is gone. You stand there, breathing heavily, eyes wide. It's over. The shadow is gone. The reflection, the voice, the suffocating darkness, it's all gone. But you know, deep down, that this isn't the end. The shadow has been a part of you for so long that it can never truly be erased. But now, it's something you control, something you understand. You've learned to live with it. And with that knowledge, the shadow loses its power over you. For now, at least, you're free. But the shadow is always there, lurking at the edges of your mind, waiting for the moment when you might falter. The battle may not be over, but for the first time, you're ready for whatever comes next. And for now, that's enough. You sit in silence, the weight of the encounter still pressing against your chest, even as the world outside continues on as usual. The shadows in the corners no longer seem so threatening, yet you can feel their pull, faint but ever present. The shadow you defeated wasn't truly destroyed. It just retreated, biding its time. You know that the battle has only paused, not ended. The air in your home feels almost too still, like the calm before the storm. As you sit there, you try to rationalize what has happened. You face the darkness, fought it and won. But the truth is hard to swallow. The shadow will always be a part of you. It's not something you can outrun. You realize that it will continue to test you, pulling at your weaknesses when you least expect it. Still, you feel a strange sense of relief. You face the darkest part of yourself and emerge stronger. Or so you hope. Days turn into weeks. The world around you feels lighter, but there's something else, something you can't quite name, lurking just out of reach. The night has become both a comfort and a reminder. You know it's only a matter of time before the shadow returns, perhaps stronger than before. It begins to creep into your dreams. At first, it's subtle, a shadowy figure standing in the corner of your room. its outline barely visible against the darkness. You try to look away, but it's like the very air is thickened by its presence, pulling your attention back. As the dreams grow more frequent, you realize that the shadow is not just following you through your waking hours. It's now a fixture of your subconscious. One night, as you lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, you hear it again, that familiar knock. At first, you think it's just a dream, but when the knocking persists, louder this time, you realize it's real. A chill runs down your spine, and you rise, unable to ignore it. You move toward the door, your heartbeat thundering in your ears. The knocking stops as soon as your hand touches the handle, but the silence is far more unnerving. Slowly, you open the door. There's no one there, but the air is heavy. The world feels off, as though something is about to break. Something is about to shatter. It's the same feeling you had the first time the shadow came for you. And it's here again, stronger than ever. You step outside, into the cold night, the world around you shrouded in darkness. The silence is suffocating, and the feeling of being watched creeps down your spine. You don't know what it is, but you know it's not over. The next few days pass in a haze. You try to go about your life, but there's no escaping the feeling that the shadow is always just behind you, waiting for the right moment to strike. It's no longer just in the dark corners of your room or in the reflection in the mirror. It has seeped into your thoughts, your actions, your every movement. And then one evening, it happens again. You're sitting in your living room, reading a book, trying to block out the world, when the reflection appears. It's subtle at first. You see it in the window, a flicker in the corner of your eye. But when you turn to look, there's nothing there. You shake it off, but then you see it again. This time, it's more defined, more alive than before. You stand up, heart racing. The reflection in the window, your reflection, smiles back at you. It's not just a distorted image anymore. It's real. It's you. But it's not. You take a step back, your body frozen in place. The reflection moves, mimicking your every move, but with a sinister twist. It's faster, more fluid, and its smile stretches unnaturally wide, revealing sharp teeth. Your heart pounds in your chest, and for the first time, you feel the terror you thought you'd left behind. This isn't just a shadow. This is something worse. You can't escape me, the reflection whispers, its voice a twisted version of your own. You're mine. You always were. The air grows thick, and the room seems to distort, the edges bending and warping as if reality itself is cracking under the pressure. You want to look away, but you can't. The reflection's gaze is pulling you in, draining you, filling you with an overwhelming sense of dread. But then you hear it, a voice, soft but clear, breaking through the suffocating darkness. Remember what you learned. You are in control. You always were. It's a voice from within you, a reminder of the strength you've gained. You've faced the shadow before. You confronted your deepest fears. And you will again. With a deep breath, you force yourself to move. You reach for the door, pushing yourself out of the room and away from the reflection. But the door slams shut with a deafening crash. The air grows colder and the shadows grow thicker. But this time you are ready. The shadows don't just fill the room anymore. They consume it. The walls close in, the floor buckles, and the ceiling stretches downward, as though the entire house is folding into itself, the world becoming smaller and smaller. You fight to breathe, but it's impossible. The air is thick with the weight of fear, but you push through it. You close your eyes and center yourself, calling on the strength you built. You remember the first time you fought the darkness, when you faced your deepest terror. That fear, those shadows, can only control you if you allow them to. You reach for the darkness, not to fight it, but to understand it. You extend your hand, and instead of retreating, the shadows respond. They coil around your wrists, cold and heavy, but you don't flinch. You hold steady, drawing on your willpower. The reflection in the window watches, its smile twisted and malicious. But now you see the truth. It's afraid of you. It's always been afraid of what you can become. You think you won, the reflection taunts, but its voice wavers, as if it's losing control. I don't need to win, you reply, your voice calm and steady. I just need to exist. And I will. The shadows recoil, the reflection faltering. You've learned that darkness can't hold you forever. Not when you've faced it and survived. Not when you've embraced it instead of running. With a final, powerful gesture, you let go. The shadows dissipate. The room snaps back into focus, and the cold air vanishes. The silence is profound, deafening in its quiet. The house, once again, feels still, safe. But you know this peace won't last. The shadow has been banished for now, but it's always waiting, lurking in the corners of your mind. You take a deep breath, the weight of the battle lifting from your shoulders. You've faced it, and though you know it's never truly gone, you've come to understand something important. The shadow is not your enemy. It's a part of you, a reflection of your deepest fears. And as long as you stand strong, it can never truly control you. The darkness is a reminder of the strength you carry, and you know now that you can live with it. Perhaps, in the end, it isn't the shadow that defines you. It's how you choose to confront it. And with that thought, the light begins to break through, soft and steady, warming the room. It's a new day, a day that belongs to you. Weeks pass, and the lingering feeling of unease begins to fade, but you're never quite at peace. Every night, when you lie in bed, you stare at the darkness, expecting it to come crawling back. But each morning you wake up, and the world seems more familiar, the shadows less imposing. You've convinced yourself that it's over, that the battle is done, but deep down you know better. Something still lurks, waiting. One evening, while cleaning out your attic, a place you've rarely ventured in recent years, you come across something odd, a door. You've never seen it before. It's tucked behind old boxes, cobwebs hanging from the edges, as though it's been hidden for decades. You hesitate at first, the sense of foreboding creeping in again, but curiosity gets the better of you. You move toward it, feeling your pulse quicken, your hand trembling slightly as it brushes against the cold, weathered wood. There's something ancient about it, as though it's been waiting just for you. You can almost feel it pulling you in, calling to something deep inside of you. It feels wrong, but it also feels familiar. Without thinking, you reach for the handle and twist it. The door creaks open with an unsettling noise, as if it hasn't been touched in centuries. But what's behind it isn't another room or space in your home. Instead, it opens into a vast, pitch-black void. You step forward, unsure of what you're seeing, but the feeling of the shadows intensifies. This isn't just another part of your house. This is something else, something that transcends the boundaries of your world. The air is thick with an unnatural chill, and the faintest whisper brushes against your ear. Come closer. You freeze, unable to move. It's the same voice, the one that once spoke through the shadows, the one that tormented you. It's calling you now, beckoning you forward. But you've learned better than to follow the darkness without understanding it first. You step back, your instinct screaming at you to leave it alone, to close the door and never look back. But you can't. A strange pull tugs at you. Something inside you feels like it's reaching for this doorway. You glance around the attic, and in the dim light, you spot something. It's a piece of paper, folded and placed carefully on a box near the door. You open it, and the words scrawled on the page are unmistakable. The door that was never meant to open is waiting for you. Behind it lies everything you feared and more. Your heart skips a beat. You look back at the door, the edges of the void growing darker, more impenetrable. Your instincts are screaming at you now, but curiosity lingers. The shadow, the reflection, it has all been part of something bigger, something more ancient. The room around you feels colder still, the darkness and the void palpable, like it's breathing with you. You stand at the threshold, torn between the need to run and the irresistible urge to step forward. The shadows have never felt this powerful before, this alive. They seem to coil around your ankles, whispering, teasing, reminding you of every moment you thought you'd conquered them. You take a hesitant step back, but the door seems to pulse with strange energy, its presence almost alive, as though it aware of your every move. The whispers grow louder, insistent, pulling at your thoughts. You have unfinished business. Come, see what you've missed. You swallow hard. For the first time, fear doesn't just seep into your thoughts. It overwhelms your senses. Something is waiting for you behind that door. You know it, but what if it's not the same as before? What if this time the shadows are stronger than you prepared for? You might have fought them before, but there's no guarantee you can survive this. Yet, deep down, you can't deny the pull. The door is part of your story now, and there's no turning away. You step closer, closer than ever before. With a trembling hand, you grip the door handle, feeling its icy surface. The coldness shoots through you, numbing your fingers, but you twist the handle anyway. The door swings open fully, and before you, the void spills out like an ocean of blackness, infinite and consuming. You stand at the edge of it, and as you peer into the abyss, it seems to stare back. The silence is deafening, punctuated only by the soft, rhythmic hum of the dark. The shadows beckon you, curling and whispering, tempting you to cross. Your heart races faster now, thudding against your ribs as the weight of decision presses down on you. You cannot fight what you cannot see. A voice says from within the dark, its words familiar, dripping with malice. You have always belonged to us. The hairs on the back of your neck stand up, but you can't look away. The voice is so familiar, like a twisted version of your own. And then it comes, another whisper, a sound that doesn't belong to this world. A sharp, piercing screech erupts from the dark, and from within it, something begins to stir. The void ripples like a disturbed lake, a deep, unsettling presence building behind you. You spin around, feeling something moving through the air, closing in on you. A figure materializes in the corner of the room. It's only a silhouette at first, but then it becomes clearer. A twisted version of yourself, your reflection, but bigger. It stands, towering over you, and its eyes glow with unsettling, malevolent energy. This isn't just a shadow anymore. This is a thing that has been haunting you all along. The entity behind the reflections, the one that feeds on your fear. It grins, revealing jagged teeth, and steps toward you. You think you can escape me? You think you can outrun your own darkness. You stagger back, panic gripping your chest as the shadow closes in, the very air thickening with its presence. You're trapped, unable to escape, unable to breathe. The weight of the darkness is crushing, overwhelming. It feels like the world is falling apart around you, like the fabric of reality is crumbling. But through the overwhelming panic, one thought cuts through the chaos. You are stronger than this. You take a deep breath, ignoring the fear that threatens to paralyze you. This entity, this dark version of yourself, can't control you, not unless you let it. You stand your ground, even as the reflection looms larger, its grin widening. You cannot win. Its voice is cold, mocking. You are nothing without me. For a moment, doubt flickers in your mind. The shadow is so powerful, so pervasive. It feels as if you're fighting against everything you've ever feared. But then you remember everything you've learned. The shadow is a part of you, but it does not define you. You take another step forward, your pulse steady now. I am not you. The words come out quietly, but with determination. The reflection falters. Its grin falters, twisting into something else, something that almost looks like fear. The shadow recoils, pulling back as though it's retreating into the void. You cannot escape your own nature, it says, its voice desperate. But you know it's a lie. You've faced it before. And now, you stand firm, not as a person once controlled, but as someone who has learned to understand the darkness and choose to stand in the light. The shadow dissolves before your eyes, fading back into the void. The room, once again, feels still. The door behind you creaks closed with a final, heavy thud. The silence stretches out, but now it's peaceful. You turn away from the door, finally free from the weight that has followed you for so long. The shadow is gone. And this time, you know, there is nothing left to fear. The darkness may always linger, but it no longer controls you. You are no longer bound to it. And with that, for the first time in years, you feel the light fully fill the room. The end. The feeling of liberation lingers in the air as you walk through your home. Everything feels different now. Calmer, quieter, but there's still something unsettled within you. Despite the apparent victory over the darkness, a faint, nagging sense of unease claws at your thoughts. The last few days have been almost tranquil. The shadows haven't come back, and the world outside seems as normal as it was before the terror began. But you can't shake the feeling that something is waiting. The weight of the battle still lingers like a shadow that has never truly left you. One night, as you prepare for bed, you catch yourself gazing at the mirror again. For the first time in a while, you don't feel the shadow's presence, but you still notice something strange. The reflection. It's different now, but not in any way that's immediately clear. At first glance, everything appears fine. But as your eyes scan the mirror, you see something, a flicker, a movement that isn't your own. Your breath catches in your throat as you lean closer. Your reflection isn't quite right. Its movements are slightly off, mimicking you, but with an eerie delay. You step back, rubbing your eyes. There's no way this could be happening. You've defeated it. You confronted the shadow and emerged victorious. Haven't you? But the reflection is still there, waiting, watching. You swallow hard. There's something deeper here, something that defies logic, something you couldn't have anticipated. You reach for the light switch, flipping it off. But when you turn back the mirror, the reflection is still there. Only this time it's smiling. And it's not your smile. A chill spreads through your body, and panic bubbles to the surface. You back away from the mirror, your feet stumbling over the rug as your mind races. The victory you thought you had achieved feels like a lie. The darkness hasn't gone. It's only changed form. The next few days pass uneasily. The reflection is still there, lurking in the corner of your mind, and it feels as if something inside you is starting to splinter. You can't focus, can't concentrate. Your thoughts are scattered, as if some invisible force is tugging at the edges of your reality. Something isn't right. There's a rift forming within you, one you didn't notice before. And it feels like the more you fight it, the stronger the pull becomes. You're lying in bed one night, staring at the ceiling when it happens again. The knocking. It's faint at first, like a distant echo of a memory, but then it grows louder, more insistent. It sounds like it's coming from somewhere in the house. Your pulse races. You know better than to ignore it. The knocking isn't just a sound, it's a signal, a sign that something has returned. You get out of bed, your body moving on autopilot, and follow the sound. It leads you to the basement door. You hesitate for a moment, the sense of dread settling heavily in your stomach. The basement was always a place you avoided, but now, there's something more, something that feels like an invitation. You open the door slowly, a sense of inevitability creeping over you as you descend the stairs. The cold air of the basement clings to your skin as you step on the concrete floor. But there's something else now, something in the air, a weight that wasn't there before. The knocking continues, now louder, more urgent, but it's coming from the farthest corner of the basement. As you approach, your heart beats hard in your chest, almost painfully. The shadows seem thicker here, darker than ever before. And then you see it. At the very back of the basement, there's a door. You've never seen it before. You don't know how it's possible. It wasn't here when you first moved in. The door is old, worn, its edges crumbling, and as you approach it, you feel the air grow colder, the temperature dropping sharply. You reach out, and as your hand touches the door handle, you feel it. The same coldness, the same dread you felt when you first confronted the darkness. This is it. This is the source. But what is it? Without thinking, you twist the handle and step inside. The door leads you into a room unlike any other. It's completely dark, save for a single, flickering light that casts a sickly glow over the surroundings. The air feels heavy, thick with something sinister. You can't see much at first, but the longer you stay in the room, the clearer it becomes. You see them, mirrors, everywhere. They cover the walls, the floor, even the ceiling, all reflecting the same thing. You, but it's not just you. It's a twisted version of you, a darker version, distorted and contorted in ways that shouldn't be possible. The mirrors show you with hollow eyes, with dark, twisted grins that stretch unnaturally wide, with shadows flickering in the corners of your reflection, making it seem like you're no longer just standing in front of them. You're trapped within them. You stagger backward, but the mirrors follow you, surrounding you from every angle. And then, from the farthest corner of the room, you hear it, that familiar, distorted voice. Did you think it was over? The voice echoes cold and mocking. You're not free. You are never free. A surge of realization hits you like a tidal wave. The shadow you thought you defeated, the one that had haunted you, was never truly gone. It had just found a new way to enter your life, through these mirrors, through the very reflection of yourself. In the reflection before you, you see the shadow's true form, more grotesque and monstrous than you ever imagined. It shifts and rides in the mirror, its form shifting between darkness and light. It's like a nightmare, a being that feeds on the very essence of your fear. You try to step back, but the mirrors seem to move with you. They press in closer, closing you in on all sides, trapping you. The shadows are everywhere now, stretching and clawing at the edges of your mind. You're not sure how long you stand there, paralyzed by terror, but eventually you hear a voice, a new voice, one you didn't expect. You were never meant to face this alone. You spin around, your heart racing as you search for the source. And then from behind you, a figure steps out from the shadows, a familiar figure. It's you. The version of you standing in front of you is calm, composed, and in control. There's no fear in this reflection. There's only power. You've always had the power to destroy it. Your other self says softly, stepping forward. But you've been running from it. You cannot outrun yourself. You must face what's inside you to destroy it. In that moment, you understand. The shadow was never an external force. It was always part of you. It was your own fear, your own darkness, manifesting in ways you couldn't control. But now, standing before your other self, you realize the key to defeating it was always within you. You close your eyes and take a deep breath. The fear, the shadows, the reflection, they cannot control you unless you allow it. Your reflection, your darker self, nods, as if it always known this moment would come. It steps back, allowing you to move forward, to stand tall. The mirrors around you begin to crack and shatter, one by one. As you move toward the center of the room, the darkness begins to retreat, fading into nothingness. And as the last mirror shatters, you are left standing in the emptiness, the silence echoing around you. The shadows are gone. You face your deepest fear, and you have finally conquered it. You step out of the room, feeling lighter, freer than you've ever felt before. The door behind you closes with a final, decisive click, and for the first time, you feel truly at peace. The darkness will never completely vanish. It's a part of you, after all, but you've learned to control it. You've learned that it doesn't define you. It's just another part of the journey. As you return to your home, the light of a new day breaking through the window, you smile. This is your life now, and you are in control. The end.